everybody. Welcome back to Pagan's Witchy Corner. My name is Pagan, and today I'm joined by a familiar friend who I'm so happy to have back on the show, and that is Bretty Hollyhead. Brett wrote a beautiful Pagan Portals book about the goddess Sabrina, and it was, oh my God, fantastic. I already love Welsh mythology to begin with, and getting to read more Welsh mythology was just right up my alley. But like getting to read this book, I was just like, oh my God. And it was so much better and blew my expectations out of the water. I honestly didn't even know what to expect reading it. And then going into it, I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. So everyone, go pick up a copy of Brett's book. It's beautiful. It's a short read, but it is absolutely beautiful. And you will get so much out of it. And there's so much history and so many different connections to other cultures and different things. And you're just going to love it. But we're going to talk all about it. But Brett, welcome to the show. And thank you for writing your book.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me back again. And thank you for reading my book. Honestly, I'm absolutely blushing here, though. You can't tell because I've got very dull lighting. But, thank you. It's it was such a nerve-wracking experience. I was quite apprehensive about because this is my first book, and putting it out into the world and to have people read it. I was always had that suspicion in my mind, like, oh, God, what if everyone hates it? But honestly, it's so reassuring to hear that people enjoy it. Thank you.
I don't know how they could hate it, to be honest, because honestly, it is just a joy to read. And you bring so much nuance to the goddess Sabrina, and you really truly bring her entirety to light in every possible way, plus giving your own stories and your own little like funny tidbits about your life and experiences with her were just it was honestly sewn together in such a beautiful tapestry of literature that I'm just in love with. So yes, like I said, I'm going to gush all about this book all day long.
Oh, thank you.
So it was fantastic. But we have so much great stuff to kind of get into. And honestly, I don't even know where to begin. Like, I guess my first question for you is kind of the book holds so much heart and it has so many different variations of stories and different transitions of hers. So, but it holds a lot of sharpness you wouldn't expect from her when you kind of hear some of the like common mythologies that are not like, that I guess you could say are just watered down. So you don't hear about the sharpness of her. You don't hear about a lot of that, darkness within her. So, you never really flinched when you were writing that, which I loved so much. And I loved how you took that in there. So I guess my first question for you, which was the part that was most emotionally difficult for you to write about?
Oh, that's a really interesting question, actually. And yeah, I think when I was writing this book, I had to make it my absolute motivation to try and encompass the goddess in all of her aspects. So I think there's a really common tendency within modern paganism to kind of glasshouse deity or to try and see it through rose-tinted spectacles. Like, especially within the more modern goddess movement, there is this idea, everything has to be a whimsical mother, maternal goddess, and we're all born from her womb, and she's loving and nurturing. And really, when you look to nature and all its different aspects, it's quite ambivalent, really. And I think a lot of them stories get missed because obviously we don't necessarily want to position ourselves against any kind of adversity when it comes to our own mythology and divinity who we're supposed to form these sacred relationships with. But I didn't want to skip that out with Havfred. And that's not to say that she's some evil deity that's going to come murder you. Although, this is water we're talking about. It's temperamental. But I thought to myself it was really important to really cover all the aspects that comprise the culture and the vibrancy of the Seven's Law and her river. But I think the most emotional the really emotional experience for me when writing this book was the confirmation of identity. So I write about it a lot in this book, but it's something that I'm going to touch a lot within my future works. And that's the validation that serves with my identity. So many people will know of my work. I grew up in the Welsh Marches, and in the book I describe it as a hinterland, a very hybrid and fluid landscape that has suffered contention and war and conquest. That's almost shaped it as a miscellaneous kind of identity that's not quite English and not quite Welsh, and so it doesn't quite fit. And you see this kind of resonate within people's expectations and the ideologies in terms of the people from the marches, that they're quite a monstrous people. And growing up, I always felt that I never belonged. I mean, being a queer child, you feel that anyway, but growing in a mixed Welsh and English family, growing up across the border, being passed over like a bloody cheese board, left, right, and centre, over to England, over to Wales. I didn't know exactly where I fit in, but when I was researching the book and seeing how Sabrina, or Hafren as we call her in Welsh, has comprised all of those beautiful liminal aspects that don't quite fit into those categories. She defies expectations, especially her folklore. It was quite confirming that I and myself, my identity, can stand behind that and say, you know what, I may have been born in Shrewsbury, which is what most people call England, even though there's a lot of context around that in terms of its Welsh influence. And I grew up in Wales as well, but I'm firm in my stance that I am who I am, and I don't have to confine myself to a label. And it's made me quite emotional because I speak to so many people who don't identify with the labels that they ascribe with. You know, we're born into this world and we're already slapped with this conservative label on us. You know, we have this name given to us, we have our gender given to us, and we have our nationality given to us, and yet the culture and vibrancy of the marches is very much like Sabrina's water. It travels, it changes, it traverses. It is what it wants to be. It defines containment. And I think that just really exemplifies the beautiful vibrancy of her culture. And I think that was probably the most emotionally confirming part to me, that I am who I am, and I'm proud of it. My goddess represents that.
I love that, which uh, I love that you bring all of that in because honestly, that was one of my favorite things about the book too, is that she doesn't seem to be just, she is a Welsh goddess, obviously, but she
Mm.
doesn't seem to just be nuanced in just that one special place. She's almost tied to all bodies of water. And because you reference parts of her reference that she might be connected to things in India, and there's the
Mhm.
Roman aspects. I saw aspects of Santa Muerte in her as well. And
Oh,
so,
fabulous.
like, I saw aspects of the Morgan and all, a lot of the deities I work with. And I was just like, wow, this is really fascinating. And to see all of these different aspects come throughout, it really doesn't mean that she has to be boxed into Wales. She can be
Absolutely.
wherever you are, which, obviously we're going to talk more about that later. But um, I love that you also kind of describe her as this protector of outlaws and like fugitives, which was really fascinating to me, and cultural misfits. And I'm kind of obsessed with her being like this protector of fugitives in a way too, because I think that's really fascinating.
We love
So
a bit of anarchy.
yeah, a little bit of anarchy. We love that about a goddess. Um, so it kind of makes me wonder, like, how would Sabrina, do you think, speak to today's, you know, people who are queer, displaced, neurodivergent, the culturally othered people, the people who don't fit in, as you were saying, and what do you think that she would say to them if given the opportunity?
Oh, if she was here today and she could embody a very physical voice that was visceral to our experiences, I think she would shout from the rooftops, destroy the patriarchy, and do it while you're wearing high heel boots and look fabulous doing it. I think, I think with Afrin, I think even I wrote in the book as well that she does embody these queer aspects because although we don't have the strongest evidence of her pertaining to antiquity beyond the 12th century, there is remnants of divinity attached to the seventh from the ancient people. And that doesn't necessarily fixate around a feminine form. It's changed, it's transformed, it's had a masculine form, there's zoomorphic images in there related to salmon before it coalesced into what we know as Sabrina today. So she's transformed and she's transmuted it into all different identities. And I think that's something a lot of us can relate to. And the fact that we see later on in the stories told about her, so the most famous one being Comus, written by John Milton, and how in the story the character known as the lady is trapped by this enchanter who tries to convince her to give away her virginity, her innocence, and to delve into all sorts of debauchery. And it is her brothers that run to Sabrina and say, please come help my sister. And she calls and she answers the call. And I think people who go to rivers, each river contains the memories and traditions of our ancestors. It is the love and the heart of the community and the sorrow of the community all flow into that river. And when people run there, they have a wellspring of power that they can utilize. And water, make no mistake, water is not some kind and gentle entity. It will, pardon my French, it will feck you up.
Yeah, no,
Just, it will. And I think if there's one thing that we as modern pagans need to understand is that the more we take advantage of water, the more it's going to push back against us. And I think water can resonate with us on such a deep, visceral level in that aspect as well, because as marginalized communities, whether, we're a different color, depending where we are or what gender identity we are, that does not fit the heteronormative or the stereotypical white dominant societal outlook. I think Sabrina takes us all in as that maternal influence that can shroud us in to say, like us, she has been stamped on, she's been oppressed, and yet she's still here thriving today. And that's a testament to the power of our marginalized communities, that no matter what is thrown at us, no matter how much war and segregation goes on, they can't get rid of us because we are integral to this world and we make it beautiful. And that is reflected in the goddess and her stories.
Oh my God, I love that so much. That is so beautiful. I mean, that's just honestly a tribute to your book as well, because your book is gorgeous. Like the wording
Thank
is
you.
beautiful, the way that you tell the stories is beautiful. Like I'm not kidding when I say everyone go buy a copy of Brett's book. I mean, I say this every show. Like you guys should get used to this, but like the one thing I want you guys to realize is I don't bring guests onto my show if I don't like their books and I don't subscribe to the book that itself. So if I wouldn't buy the book myself, I won't have somebody on my show because honestly, it's not fun for me to talk to somebody whose book that I'm just like, oh, it's okay. Like it was all right. Like, like if I tell you to go buy the book, it's because I loved the book. It was amazing and it was perfect in all of its ways. So yeah, I loved everything you just said because it's so
Oh,
true.
thank you.
And especially the part where she's like, yes, go fight the patriarchy in high heel boots. Fuck yes. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, it's one thing I wanted to push through my book so much because I'm going to slate the modern day community. Not everyone is, perpetuating it, but I am so, and you've heard me say it before, I'm so bored of this divine masculine, divine feminine. And although we utilize she, her pronouns when it comes to Sabrina today, that's not the be all end all. And I just love that as a watery deity that's been here since the beginning of time. She can be whatever the feck she wants to be. And if she can, so can we.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Um, so I love it that she has and the ability that she has to transform and the, different nuances with all the different cultures. And I loved how you talked about how the archaeological aspects of like the Romans, statuary that they found that was actually attributed to somebody who was male of sorts.
Mhm.
And then you're like, well, could it have been her? Maybe, maybe not. We don't really know because there's no definitive archaeological data to state, yes, this was her. No, that was
Absolutely.
her. And I love that that was something that's like, we don't really know all of the things about divinity because of the fact that a lot of it's been erased in a lot of different
Mhm.
places, or the oral traditions were, well, there's no nice way to say it. It was killed off. So,
Yeah.
it was colonized out because it didn't fit the narrative that somebody else wanted, somebody who had more power. And that's a really sad thing because it allows these beautiful traditions that have been around for probably millennia before that just get washed away. And so now we are seeing things that are like the deities are trying to find their own way back in their own storytelling and connect with people in their own way and say, I didn't die, I'm still here. And they
Yeah.
haven't been forgotten. And I love that so much. And I love that you are bringing all of that life back to Sabrina, especially because at least here in the States, she's not super well known in a lot of ways,
Mm.
unless like you were talking about the statuary that's up in Massachusetts. But outside of that, like she's not really well known, at least in my pagan circles. So
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, she's quite overlooked within even in the Celtic continuum. Those who subscribe to like the Celtic nations, if they're of Irish descent or Welsh descent or whatever it is, she is so overlooked, and yet she's played such an integral role in shaping our culture and our landscape here. And I think what you said as well, I completely agree. As I call it, the ancient history of this goddess, of what we could have known about her and how that divinity was shaped by the ancient people, has been lost to the mist of time, unless in future to come, we have those archaeological excavations that reveal a little bit more to the mysteries of the goddess. But I think it really speaks to the yearning we have as a modern day people, that we need these stories to come back alive in order to teach us and to ingrain us with new wisdom. And through this apotheosis of creation, although Sabrina may not have statues in the past that have her name attached to them, it may be something else completely or entirely, she is here and she is now. There are altars dedicated to her because she speaks to an inherent need of us. And I think that is definitely this idea of yearning to be one with not just water, but with nature itself, with this interconnection that we feel with the world, and how we must remove ourselves away from the center of importance to embrace the magic and mystery of water itself, as it would have been back in the ancient days.
I love that so much. And, you kind of talk about the way that like the landscape and everything that it had and how it has changed But
Mm.
obviously, we're finding that a lot of people are trying to connect back to the land, especially even in a modern day full of technology. Everyone's like screaming, "Go out, touch grass!" like,
Yes.
so we are still screaming to touch our landscapes, and especially in a world where we're dealing with like climate change and these types of things. So what advice would you give to modern witches who are trying to honor the land spirits without romanticizing or like really appropriating them in like a negative way? Because obviously we don't want to take Sabrina away from where she originates, but
Mm.
we also don't want her to be forgotten either.
Absolutely. I think there's so many different ways you can connect with Sabrina, depending how close you are located to the source of her river, or if you are distance, miles and miles away. It doesn't really matter. It all functions down to the idea of seeing the world through eyes of reverence and awe. That's the main important thing. It's not necessarily reconstructing old beliefs and subscribing to this idea that, the old ways of this, that, and the other. It's in the past, and although we can take inspiration from that, we must remember that we are modern day people and we are rooted in the contemporary, but we can shape the contemporary by embodying that wisdom. And the main thing I always tell people is that when you're in the landscape or if you're miles and miles away, is to keep the stories alive, fan the flame with those stories and spread them about and allow new meanings to come to those stories. So whatever meanings were originally subscribed to Sabrina, whether it was her being drowned in the river or her being born from a mountain giant and bringing nourishment to the landscape, retell it, add variant to it, add flavor. Where's the cinnamon? Add flavor to it. Allow those stories to flourish. And when you're connected with the landscape and wanting to, strike up a relationship with the spirits of the landscape, or whether it be Sabrina, it's the simple, everyday, tangible acts that we can utilize in order to foster that connection. Because a lot of people, and it's, like I said, no tea, no shade, they go out and they sing to the river, and it is beautiful, but it has to be coupled with something tangible. So something is simple, which many people overlook, such as picking up litter and throwing it in the bin, or making sustainable choices that impact our rivers in such a positive way, feeding wildlife, campaigning and advocating for the rights of our water, which is happening at a more higher degree now, thankfully, because of the rise of pollution. It's those acts that really truly make the difference, because those are the threads of the heart that connect communities together and allow us to come back to the river with reverence and wonder in our hearts that we can connect to this deity. And another way as well is to utilize art, let the creative spirit, let Awen flow through you and allow yourself to engage in different types of art in order to bring the goddess to life. So if you're a creative person, write stories that involve the goddess. If you are involved in the textile arts like I am, you can crochet, knit, weave, all these different things to all into embody that sacrality that's attached to it. Or if you aren't artistic minded, or you like me, like I can't draw for shit. The best I can do is a stick man. There are so many ways you can do that. You can write poetry and sing it to the river. You can go on fundraising events, and that doesn't have to be within the locality either. That could be from miles away, raising money to raise awareness for water itself. There's so many beautiful ways to connect. Absolutely.
I love all of that. And it's true, there are so many different ways to connect. And I love that there's different ways to connect not only to the land, but to the deity itself. You're saying like crochet and make art and all of that. It also doesn't have to be art of the deity. It can be art of something that inspires you to be that deity. Maybe you paint in abstracts, maybe you paint in landscapes, maybe
Yep.
you draw, maybe you write, maybe you sing or dance or whatever. All of these different things are valid when you're working with any deity. And even when you're trying to say, I loved how you're like, I don't necessarily work with her, I worship her. And that's something that we also don't see a whole lot in the pagan spaces anymore.
Yeah, it's a really convoluted word, I think, because when people hear the word prayer or anything in terms of worship, they think it's automatically something to do with supplicating yourself to the deity, that you are lesser than the deity. And although deity itself, regardless of whether you're a polytheist or you're an atheist or you're a pantheist, when it comes to worship, I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that I am lessening myself in terms of that I am unworthy of this deity or I deserve to be of a different status. To me, it highlights the central importance of this deity to my life, to my culture, and to the stories I promote with other people. It's a sign of respect to say, yes, I worship you, as a sense of acknowledgement that you are here before me and you'll be here long after me. And I am a part of you and you are a part of me, and I worship that. And the divine energy that flows between us is what connects the whole entire cosmos, whether it be people to river, people to mountain, people to people, or people to the modern day buildings. It is all that sacred energy that binds us together, and that is worthy of veneration in my eyes. not in the same way as Christian dogma or any of the other Abrahamic religions, but something that is so beautifully woven together like a tapestry that, yeah, I worship you because I see you and you see me. That's how I kind of word it.
I love that so much. And I think that the book that I'm currently working on is a book of prayer and worship and all of that as well.
Mm,
So like I'm working on a book in regards to that. But like I think that a lot of times that we have been taught that, a lot of the Abrahamic religions and all of that, they have the, I guess, pointing terms of prayer and worship, but those were there long before they were. And,
absolutely.
we get to have this opportunity to not only just reclaim those and understand what that means within the pagan religion, but to also make them less dirty in a sense, because that's kind of how they feel a little bit because of a lot of religious trauma. And
Mm.
so I love that you are bringing that wording back into Sabrina's life as well. And I
Oh,
love
thank you.
that it gives the opportunity for maybe pagans who are new to go, I don't know what worship means in terms of that. Well, that's okay. You can find your own path in regards to that, whatever that means to you. And I love that you're like, also, I'm not making myself completely lesser than the deity. The deity is a part of me, and we have this flowing relationship between each other. Not in like a God spousing way. Like we're not
Oh, yeah.
good Lord, no, no.
Oh no, I'm all right, thank you. People who godspout themselves to Sabrina, you run the risk of being drowned by her. She always demands a sacrifice every year, so I value my life.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, that's kind of where I was going with that. Like, you have to have a respect for the deity, not just to like you were just saying, "Oh, well, we're on the same page." You are, but you're not. Like, this is a
Absolutely.
being that is so much stronger than you, that is a literal divine being, and we are just merely humans. We
Yeah,
are merely the ones who are so much, I don't want to say smaller in like a bad way, but we are in by comparison. And I love that we have the opportunity to worship them and to have that feeling that just touches deep down in your soul, that makes your soul just sing when you actually get to connect with the divine. And
absolutely.
that's like the best part about it. I could gush about that all day long.
No, I love that so much, honestly.
So, kind of just bridging off of what you just said a minute ago, like you also describe her not necessarily as a, fully, soft and loving and mothering deity. She also has a landscape that carries lawlessness and grief and loss and all of this rawness. Was this something that you really wanted to really kind of hit home to people, to kind of just not really soften her edges and to make sure that people knew that she has this duality of good and bad? She is both. She is everything in between. She's the balance between the two. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that that's something that I really would love for you to touch on and talk about if you can.
Absolutely, no, 100%. It's one of the main factors of writing this book, in all honesty. And I think with Sabrina opening the door for me, it's a continual work that I will continue writing about, to be fair. So when it comes to Sabrina, yes, she inhabits a landscape that has known turmoil, it has known melancholy, it has known bloodshed and war and conquest and all those things. Although they are integral to the landscape, they are often ignored by the pagan community because they don't necessarily offer the most vibrant or the most amazing of insight in order to try and form a connection with a deity. But you cannot take the culture and the history away from the foundations that underpin a deity. And with Sabrina, the war between the English and the Welsh, or the early Brythonic people and the Normans, the Anglo-Saxons, all of it comprises her underpinnings. And to understand that is to understand the deity and how there is this sense of loss there. There is a sense of hiraeth. Like in the landscapes that she flows through on the English side of the border, they are classed as the Welsh Marches because that is that semblance of Welsh culture that still exists there, that still holds onto the fragments and the old stories that flow there. And how, if you look at Wales on a map today and in the modern day boundaries, you'll see that the east, is it east? Yes, the east side, it almost looks like a bite or a chunk's been taken out of the landscape. And those lands, they were sung about by poets and by people campaigning against the idea of hegemony when it came to the British Empire, and how to do this, to consolidate everyone's identity under one flag, under one identity, under one union, it did a disservice to the people. It completely eradicated the history. And so bringing back forth that history can allow us the nuances that we can to delve into the goddess and how, yes, she is a Welsh goddess, but then she straddles that liminal betwixt and between as well, that encapsulates the mythology and folklore and encapsulates her people as well. And because us as people, we are all complex individuals with our own nuances. And the same should be said for a deity. And when you look to those ideas of melancholy and of heraeth and of longing and of loss, you do find deeper wisdom there that can be embodied, that can help us make sense of what's going on today. A lot of us are in search of those things that make our soul sing, but sometimes we have to experience that darker light of the soul in order to find them. And when you look at Sabrina's folklore, especially when you see her and she's drowned as a result of her father's infidelity, that has massive connotations, especially for modern day people, and how it's the innocent, those who are born innocent, always pay the price for those in authority. So when you look towards the text such as the Mirror of Magistrates, which is written as a warning to those within higher political power, involving the mythology of the landscape, saying that if you do not follow this conduct of behavior, then these same principles will happen to you. Her melancholy and her loss is a warning to us, and how if we strive too far away from things that are insidious or have this rhetoric of hate or anger about them, then we're going to be repeating the same things that have been going on in history for millennia. And it's a time that we come together to understand those things so we can have better understanding and how to form relationships with each other and the natural world itself.
I absolutely love that. And I love also like that you bring all of these things within the myths to light so that we can also see how they apply to the modern day. Because, there's aspects of her that are absolutely beautiful and heartbreaking, just like you were saying about how she was drowned because of her father's infidelity, but also because of the fact that she also has this terrifying aspect, like the whole thing about the saying, what was it in Gloucestershire, where Sabrina always gets her man or whatever.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So, she will always, get the retribution and all of that. And I love the folklore behind the fact that if you kill someone in her waters, she'll go after the person who did it and
Absolutely.
allow them to basically be paid for the death of polluting her waters with somebody that wasn't supposed to be there. Um,
Yep.
so you get all these terrifying kind of aspects that are not tameable. And I love that about her, especially because, you get the soft of the nymph and you get the, maidenhood aspect, but you also get this whole, I will mess up your shit if you fuck with me.
Absolutely. And I think it's wonderful. It's primal and it's great. Why would anyone want to eradicate that? I think it's terrifying. Like it's terrifying in such a good way because it gets that adrenaline running. That's how you know you're in the presence of divinity, when you are absolutely awestricken and terrified at the same time, because you can't necessarily comprehend this enigma that stands in front of you that can literally bless you with riches beyond your own comprehension and can smite you in an instant. And I think that's just beautiful and it's just delicious. It really is.
It so is delicious. So, kind of in your own experience of working with her and, obviously worshiping her, like you said, how does that experience of that duality kind of come to you and how do you experience it? And what do you do when you're faced with the duality of that as well?
Absolutely. I think so. I think the biggest threat that people who, especially live in the close vicinity of the River Severn, face is this constant threat of flooding. And that can wreak so much devastation in land, not necessarily just to agricultural practices, but also to the homes that are close upon the banks, how everything can be swept away. And although we have defenses built in place, you can never truly estimate how much damage or how much flooding there's going to be from her waters when they burst her banks. And so when I grew up on each side of her banks, that was always a big threat in my eyes. But it was a big inconvenience growing up, of course. Absolutely. It was a big inconvenience. But now, as I look back and reflect with new eyes, looking back upon it, I see it not necessarily something that's necessary, because I don't believe in the idea that, bad things happen for a reason, because it's a bit too Christian for my ideas. Like everything's prescribed for a reason, but it's something that happens because the idea I see is that nature is ambivalent. Nature's going to do whatever nature needs to do. But when you see those cycles of destruction coming in, you do see this cyclical process of rebirth coming from afterwards. So where the floods have wreaked devastation, new life forms. You have new blooms in different flora. Animals make new habitation there that's been taken over by humans. There's this beautiful richness that comes from destruction, that the sense of rebirth. And that's been positive throughout different types of mythological cycles and stories. With me personally, I am a wild swimmer. I absolutely love swimming in the wild. I mean, if it's hot enough and there's no people around, I am always up for skinny dipping. Absolutely. Like, get all the water in every crevice. But I have had moments where I've been swimming, not necessarily just in the River Severn, but in other waterscapes where I've connected with Havren, or Sabrina, and I have felt my life literally nearly being pulled away from myself because I've either stupidly underestimated the water by swimming too far out, or I've underestimated currents, and I have nearly drowned to death. I have nearly been at that point where I think, okay, the water's in places where it shouldn't be. I need to make a decision now whether to stay and accept my fate or to fight against it. And it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. I've drowned nearly quite a few times in lakes, and I call myself a good swimmer, but you can never underestimate the power of a lake or a waterfall. And it's, you have all these warnings in wild swimming communities. So that's something I had to deal with and reconcile with myself, because why would a deity who I love and worship so much allow that to happen to me? And it's not necessarily that they're allowing it. It's just that's what they are. They are tumultuous. They are capricious. They are beautiful in all these different aspects, but they cannot change their nature. And it's our subjectivity of what we prescribe to be evil or mean or menacing that needs to change, because we see that from a very humanistic perspective. And that's why I say to myself that, it's no use seeing a deity from a rose-tinted glasses. You have to see them from all different aspects and accept that you as an individual have the right to exist here, but also have the right to respect this deity on a reciprocal and equal relationship. Because people that say, oh my God, I accept all aspects of nature, I accept all aspects of pagan, open themselves up to a world where they are going to have their beliefs questioned. It's going to be like, okay, you're a pagan, you open yourself up to belief, but what do you make of this tsunami that's happening? What do you make of this earthquake? Are you going to accept that? So these things happen, but then you have to reconcile within yourself and think, okay, this natural disasters happen, or these things happen in nature that I automatically see as evil, but I can see that from a different perspective and see, okay, I can stand afloat from this. I can see myself as equal and make different, what's the word? I can make different ways of being with the water. I can make certain ways of being, should I say, or so it's very much like the analogy I say with, fish in the water. Fish kind of flow with the water. Well, a friend always said that dead fish flow with the water. They always take with the stream. Sometimes fish fight against that stream. And that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't always be constantly flowing with the water, because God knows where that water is going to take you. You should learn to swim and abide by the currents and navigate on your own course with the advice and the guidance of the water course itself. And that applies to deities as well. If I think that makes sense. It's a very hard topic to talk about because it's like I said, it's contextual. Different people have different beliefs when it comes to nature and paganism, but there's a very human perspective being applied to nature, and I think that can get us into trouble, and it can make us really rethink our own beliefs and our own underpinnings when it comes to our structure of our lives.
I think that makes a lot of sense, actually, because I think in terms of deities, yes, deities can give us this all-knowing divinity, this great wisdom, all of these things, but there's also the aspect of what are we comfortable with? Where do
Yeah.
our own boundaries lie? Like, I'll give a really great example. I'm a priestess of Loki. Loki
Mm.
is wonderful in all of the best ways. He's also chaotic in all of the best ways. And sometimes
I can imagine.
he wants to just drop a whole bucket of chaos on you for learning purposes or shits and giggles. Like, it just
Mm.
kind of varies. But after years of working with him, I realized I also have the ability to say, no, this is too much chaos. This is too much for me. Turn it
Absolutely.
down, dial it back. You're not allowed to do that. And a really great example of this is I'm not a super big fan of snakes, but I live in the
Mm.
South and I also live on a farm. Snakes are everywhere. No matter where I go, they're going to be there. But they're not allowed in my house. And for many years, when Loki was trying to get my attention, he would send a snake, a non-poisonous one, into my house. And eventually I had to put up a boundary and said, dude, no more. No more
Yep.
snakes. You want my attention? I bought you a toy snake. You can throw that thing off your altar. I don't care. You can do something with that, but no more living ones. And then I
Absolutely.
had a trickster basically impersonating him, and a snake came into my house. And I'm like, Loki,
Oh,
we had a whole deal. And he's like, it was just a joke. And I was like, wait a minute. No, no, no. We had a deal. We had boundaries. And that was a really great teaching opportunity, not only for myself, but also for, my students, and to say, this is a really great way to fact check your deities, make sure that you know who that you're talking to, especially with the
yeah.
positive ones. Spirits like to come in and impersonate them sometimes. And this is a really great way to say, hey, no, we had a boundary, we had a deal. Are you really who you say you are? Because
Yeah.
you wouldn't do this, especially because you
Absolutely.
agreed. And so I think that's kind of what you were saying. Like, we can swim with the current, we can do what, kind of go with the flow, but also we need to be fighting against it at times, because we need to make sure that we're on the same path that keeps us comfortable. that keep
Absolutely.
living where we're supposed to be. And we don't just have to take whatever a deity throws at us. We can just be like, that's not my thing. I'm not into that. Can we not do that? Like, I'm really good
100%.
with you, but I just don't want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I mean. Like, it's beautiful, and there's always going to be this a beautiful sense of reverence when it comes to nature. But nature can be very cruel, and we don't have to necessarily, accept that. And so sometimes we can't fight against it, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean we have to fully abide by everything nature has. It has to be like this equal relationship where there is respect and admiration that can be established for. Because, like, if you look at the ancient communities, they placated Sabrina's river to make sure to stave off her destructive tendencies. If they were completely absolved of any kind of expectations of the river, and said, "Okay, I'll accept everything that comes my way," they would have been wiped out. But they allowed themselves to establish agricultural land and practices in the vicinity of the Severn because there was that respectful relation. Said, "Okay, hey, I'm here. This is my boundary. Let me give you offerings. Let me placate you, and let's strike a deal here, so that make sure that you don't destroy my land." And unfortunately, like I said, temperamental nature, water's going to do whatever water wants to do. And it's reframing that aspect that when that happens, it's not necessarily an evil thing that happens. It's just, it's just what nature is. And I think understanding the mythos allows ourselves to open up our world and open up our eyes a little bit more to the more hidden aspects of nature.
It gives us the opportunity to also go, okay, yes, this terrible thing happened, but what's going to come out of this terrible thing?
Mm,
This obstacle may have been needing to be forcibly removed that I wasn't paying attention to. And I'm not saying that
yeah,
like if this is, bad things happen for specific reasons. Not always. Sometimes bad things just happen. Like there's
yeah,
not really an explanation for it. In today's world, we can almost kind of say, hey, flooding happens because of climate change. Like there is like a lot of realistic reasons why this is happening.
yeah,
But also, there are times where you'll be like, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z with this, and I want to do this and this and this and this and this. But you're missing all of the signs that the deities are putting in front of you. And sometimes they have to like literally like drop something directly in your path that just completely blows the path up a little bit,
yeah.
make you go, oh. And then it's like, wait, was I supposed to be on the road next door?
Like, literally,
And it's like, I've been pointing you that way the whole time and you
absolutely.
completely missed it. So yes, I had to block this path so you would go here. And then suddenly everything is back where it's supposed to be, flowing
Yeah,
beautifully, doing everything it's supposed to. And I'm not saying that like a deity's going to blow up your path all the time. Like if you're not paying attention, sometimes they do. Sometimes they will literally drop something in your path that feels completely life altering and
mhm.
awful. And then you go, oh, I see what happened here. I missed a sign.
It's a revelation.
Yeah, it really is. And it's like, I missed that sign 6 miles back there. And it's like,
Literally,
my bad.
absolutely.
Here. So, one of my kind of fun questions for you is if you were going to build an offering or an altar to Sabrina, what would it look like? What kind of herbs would you put on it, objects? And if you can make her a specific tea, what would you put in it?
Ooh. Oh, that's a fabulous question. So I'll try not to use my altar as an inspiration because that's cheating. So I have to do it off the top of my head. I'm not looking in the corner of the room, I promise. So if I had to design an altar, obviously this is for anyone's individual choice if they do strike up a relationship with Sabrina, but for me personally, it has to be coloured blue, of course. Very stereotypical, very, very watery. It has to be blue, teals, turquoises, any kind of cloth that's blue, or any kind of wall hanging that depicts water in its natural flowing element. I would also include not necessarily things like, you don't have to go out and buy those expensive items, things that you can forage in the natural landscape that are close to rivers. So one of the things that grows close to Havren or Sabrina is the willow tree. So making wreaths from willow itself, because willow is such a beautiful tree. It has that emotional currents that connect through the tree itself, as the weeping willow, or people go sit and have their hearts broken underneath a willow tree. It has that watery element to it. But I've always like a twig of willow there by the side to work magic on the altar. I would also have things like feathers from swans if you're lucky to have one, because swans are so integral to the goddess. Um, Even geese as well, but of course, don't necessarily pluck them straight from the animal because you might get your arm broken, according to the old wives' tale. But sometimes you find them and they make beautiful additions for decoration. um, Anything like that. For an altar for Sabrina, so one of the things I love to have on my altar, because it's very hard to come by a statue of the goddess Havren unless you get kind of stereotypical nymph. And you don't necessarily have to have a statue, but sometimes it's nice to have something that you can focus on. But for me, on my altar, I actually have a crochet, and it sounds so weird, but I have a crochet Venus of Willendorf, a big one that's on my altar, and I kind of use that as the model for Sabrina, which I dunked in her water and allowed to stay on the water, so the yarn soaked up that essence. So it's like a conduit for Havsbrem. So yeah, you can have a statue on there or that and the other. In terms of herbs, anything sweet smelling. So in terms of the tea as well. So in the poetry known as the Fleece that was written about the shepherds that are inhabiting the Powisian landscape, which Havren flows through, there was a belief that they dunked their sheep in her waters to try and protect them from all kinds of diseases that afflict the livestock. And in return, they would give the goddess sweet smelling herbs such as roses and lilies and thyme and all these different flowers as well. So for me, if I was to make a tea, I'd make it from the most beautiful, sweet smelling flowers I could find. So roses. I also love peony tea as well. So peony is beautiful because it also symbolizes heartbreak within Welsh Marches folklore. We have witches that would brew. It's probably saying it wrong. Peony. I think it's peony, peony tea.
Peony tea or peony tea, either one.
Peony tea. Yeah,
It's both here too, so it's okay.
yeah, that's all right then. The PT. The witches would make that tea to to soothe people with heartbreak who've been gone through, they've lost their loved ones or they've gone through a very disastrous relationship. So I'd have that emotional aspect is there. So rose, the pea flower, anything like that, even lavender as well. Because I love lavender. It's such a beautiful smelling herb. And a lot of people see it as, the granny herb, but really it has such a beautiful quality to it, not only for its dream capabilities or for its relaxation, but also for this aspects of death as well attached to the goddess. So lavender sprigs were often thrown along with rosemary into the coffin during wakes or during funeral processions. And so having those beautiful flowers that represents life and the sweet smelling fragrances, but also lavender with that hint that all things must come to an end, that would be my perfect tea to brew towards Havren. And that's something I would brew anyway in my everyday life. Because tea is one of my offerings I will have for the goddess on my altar. So I'll have a tea, she will have tea, and we'll chat absolute shit and serve the tea together.
Love that. That's so good. I've also never had peony tea before. So I'm not a big flower tea person unless it's like hibiscus. So
hibiscus is lovely.
Yeah, I love hibiscus tea. And hibiscus and cinnamon is really beautiful. And I also love hibiscus and peach.
Oh,
And
yes.
yes, that's so good. And have you ever I don't know if my grandmother used to talk about all the time when she was alive about doing lilac tea. Have you ever had that?
Oh, I haven't. No, it's something I really want to have because I've seen quite a few tea brands made that with lilac or other kind of flowers of a kind of similar strain. But no, I haven't. I'd love to try some.
Well, if you ever find some and you try it, let me know because I was never brave enough as a child,
No,
even though she grew lilacs wildly all over her yard and all that. I loved lilac, I still do. But yeah, it's never something that I've been brave enough to actually try. So yeah.
No, I totally get like that. So sometimes I will forage my own stuff to make tea, like nettle tea. You can't go wrong with nettle tea because it's what a nettle is. It's gonna sting you, it's nettle. But there are some flowers that I know are available for consumption. People can consume them and take them as part of a normal dietary requirement. But then I get that voice in my head that's like, oh God, should I be doing this? And I get anxiety and I get panicky. I'm like, what, fuck it, stuff it. I'll stick with the tea bag variety. But one day I'll get rid of that voice. Yeah, absolutely. I've had enough of my own branded herbal teas to know that my stomach will not mess about with them, and I've had days where I've lost time and I've lost weight from vomiting too much. So yeah, I've learned my lesson from trusting every flower I see to make a tea.
That's completely fair. So, what do you have on the horizon as far as books, classes, and what's going on in your life that you want to just tease about and talk about? Can you talk about? Because I know some books are hush hush for authors. So, yeah, what's on the horizon for Brett?
Oh, there's quite a few really exciting things coming up. As 'tis the season, to be fair, so everything always gets really busy and full of energy towards as we get closer to Calan or to Samhain. So, in terms of writing, my second book, which is The Magic of the Welsh Marches, Witchcraft and Enchantment on the Celtic Fringe, is nearly ready for submission. So hopefully I can get out for next year. And that explores all the magic and mystery of the Welsh Marches, its cunning folk, its witches, its folklore, its fairy traditions. And also, I've included in there, which I'll be speaking at a couple of conferences about, all those beautiful aspects that belong outside of the Mabinogi. So when you look to medieval manuscripts, so the White Book of Rhydderch or the Red Book of Hergest, and you see the tales of the Mabinogi composed in there, a lot of people don't look beyond that. They don't necessarily want to fixate on that because the Mabinogi is such a central and important part of paganism and of mythology. But there are other things there that we can glean wisdom from that relate to the Welsh Marches landscape. So I am taking what I can find from there and writing it in order to bequeath everyone around the wisdom of the bard that relates more so not necessarily to magic and enchantment, but also to the human condition, that which affects us on such a deep and visceral level. So loss, longing, grief, and how from the ashes we can reborn through flame and through anger, and how we can be inspired from that and reclaim our own sovereign power. So that's really something I'm excited about to bring forth in my upcoming book. I then have a couple of events coming on. So I have the Earth, Sea and Sky Conference in Cardiff on the 1st of November. So that's available to buy a ticket for. That's our in-person event and an online event as well on the 8th of November. And I'm also speaking at Witch Fest International in London on a very similar topic. So I'm very excited about that at the moment. And I've just released an article, funny enough, because it got brought up in our podcast, that on the Pagan Collective, which is like the blog spot where most authors from which I belong to write on. I've just released an article there called The Feathered Divine, which is all about the folklore and traditions of geese, because they are absolutely marvelous creatures and they deserve so much more love.
I love that, and you'll have to send me the link to that so I can include it in the show description so everybody can read it.
Oh, I will, thank you.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And your next book, I desperately need to read it, like, now.
Oh, thank you.
At the same time, I'm like, okay, I have to wait a year. Okay, like, it's fine. It's fine. I know authors, but also, like, you guys come on here and tease all your upcoming books, and I'm like,
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I know. It's like edging with no release.
I get so impatient because, like, I love all of the work that you guys do, and I love everything that you're writing. And that book sounds
Thank you.
amazing. And yes, when it comes out, you will have to absolutely come back and talk all about it because it's you. It's gonna be amazing. Let's just be.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I would absolutely love to come back. I'd be honored.
Well, it will be wonderful, and I'll make sure to also get the links for anybody who might be interested in checking out the events that you're going to be at, especially if they're going to be online, so people can get tickets if they want to. And where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm all over the place. I'm trying to keep up to date and modern with the kids, but I feel my youth slipping away from me, and I'm like, oh, am I going to look at TikTok one day and think, how the hell do I do this anymore?
Uh,
But
yeah.
I try to keep up to date with it all. But I'm on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky Threads, all under the name of Witch of Salopia.
Yes. And everyone should absolutely go subscribe to all of Brett's social media because it is fun. It is exciting. I love everything that you do with your partner, and I love everything that you guys do when you cross over with Mara as well. So, like, it's all wonderful stuff, and I get to see all of it because I stalk all of you religiously.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's so much fun. You guys always bring joy to me. Every time I see your videos, I'm like, what antics are you getting up to today?
Oh, all the menacing and debauchery. We love it.
I know, and it makes me so happy. So, everyone who's listened to this, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to this. Thank you for being a subscriber to the show. Make sure you obviously please get a copy of Brett's book. It was fantastic. And we've talked all about it today, but you need to go get a copy and read it for yourself so you can enjoy all the magic that's within those pages. And go follow Brett and get all of his social media because it is debaucherous fun, as he's already said. It is so much great times to always see when the videos pop up and the posts. So please go subscribe to all of it. And thank you so much for being here. And always, everyone,
Thank you so much for having me.
please, you are always welcome back anytime you want to come back. If you want to just talk about random, you know, mushrooms or whatever, like we can. Like I wouldn't care because I love talking to you.
Oh, they're gods in their own right. That's a whole conversation ready to be had.
We'll absolutely have to plan that or something. So everyone take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, especially in this crazy world, and always Be good, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, everyone.
Hello, friends. So, as you know, I do a lot of community work as well, in addition to the show. So, if you're looking to deepen your practice with and connect with like minded witches like myself, or even get your questions answered, you should join the Discord. And the Discord has this beautiful community that I have built, and it offers some really great opportunities for witches to connect. Once a month, we host Temple Hours. I know, silly name, but it's true. We host a open discussion where you can ask your witchcraft, paganism, or even spiritual questions. And if you're curious about deity work, spellcraft, or if you just want to chat with other fellow practitioners like myself, because I usually will be there, Temple Hours is a space where you can come and learn and grow. The other one that we offer is the Divine Gathering. So every week we host a public devotional circle to honor our gods, share offerings, and strengthen our spiritual connections with the divine. So no matter who you work with, no matter where you are in your practice, this is a time for reverence and community support. So you should totally come join us in the Raven's Nook. It's a great place. It's a warm community. It is very welcoming, very chill and relaxed. And if you want to join us, which I hope that you will, there's a link in the show description, and I can't wait to see you there. So take care, everyone, and I'll see you all next time.
So, I just wanted to give a big shout out to all of my listeners and say thank you for being a loyal listener. So, if you love the show and you want to continue supporting what I do, you should come get a little deeper into the world with me. You should check out my Ko-fi page. There are several tiers that you can choose from if you would like to. And one of those tiers is the Raven tier. This gives you sneak peeks, discounts into the little shop there, and behind the scenes looks. The Wolves tier gives you even more than that, extended looks into my books, shows, cosplay projects, and even more special creative insights. And if you want to get real deep with me, there's the Shadow tier. That brings you to monthly devotionals or divination posts, voting power on new ideas, and surprise goodies when my energy and spoons allow, plus everything from the other tiers too. So if you'd like to walk a little closer with me, check out the link in the show description because I'd love to see you there, and thanks again for being such a loyal listener.